Good day, my name is Dr. Stephen Akuma. I will be presenting a lecture on Introduction to Machine Learning. So I'll be sharing my slides so that you can follow along. Okay. So about the course. The purpose of this lecture is to introduce you to the concept of machine learning, what it entails, what it is, and why we have to study it. Then the fundamental concept of extracting knowledge will be discussed. And also, why do we have to study machine learning and its relationship to statistics and other mathematical methods. Then Python will be used for this purpose of lab work, although MATLAB or Weka can be allowed for those who have it. So the course outline will start with supervised and unsupervised learning. We'll explain to you what it is. Then we'll look at regression and classification, which is part of the supervised learning, and explain what it entails. Then under classification, we'll be looking at nearest neighbor, k-nearest neighbor, decision trees, support vector machine, and other classification techniques. We'll also be looking at clustering techniques. We'll be looking at k-means and SOM, which are part of the unsupervised learning. The dimensionality reduction, we'll be looking at PCA and ICA. Then we're looking at other methods and applications. So for today, we'll be looking at an overview of machine learning. We're looking at definitions and applications, the concept of machine learning, and also we're looking at linear regression as part of the supervised learning. So what is learning? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, learning is the activity or process of getting knowledge or skill by studying, practicing, being taught, or experiencing something. A computational definition of this by Tom Mitchell states that a computer program is said to learn from experience E with respect to some class of task T and performance measure P if its performance at tasks in T as measured by P improves with experience E. So the underlying concept here is knowledge which can be gotten through thought and experience, and that is what machine learning is all about. So what is machine learning? Machine learning is a branch of artificial intelligence that designs systems to work in a human fashion way. So machine learning is a set of tools that allow us to teach computers how to perform tasks by providing examples on how they should be done. So in the case of every case of machine learning, we have a training samples or training sets that will use a classifier to fit a model, and we test these training samples with a test set so that the model can be generalizable. So that is how a machine learning problem is solved. So it enables computer to function without being explicitly programmed. So the workflow of machine learning is sometimes similar to that of statistics, sometimes similar to that of data mining, also similar to artificial intelligence. So machine learning starts the problem. You want to know what problem you want to solve. You have to establish that. And you have to also know whether it is a statistical problem or a machine learning problem. Statistical problem can be maybe when you're looking for the difference between group mean using ANOVA or t-test, or it can be chi-square test, or maybe Poisson correlation. These are all statistical problems. For a machine learning problems, it entails looking for patterns. So you have to know what problem you want to solve. That's the first stage of the workflow. In the second stage, we have to get data for us to manipulate. And this data can be sourced through primary sources or through secondary sources. By primary source, it can be gotten through interview, which can be structured or unstructured, or it can be gotten through observations or through maybe experimentation or questionnaire, or it can be gotten through focus groups. So these are different ways of getting data, primarily maybe from the researcher or from someone that wants to collect the data by himself. So after data is collected, it's then analyzed, it's then cleaned or transformed. So data, as I've said, can be gotten through primary or secondary source. For the secondary source, it can be gotten from locally or from the web, because most organizations now have a repository of data that need to find meaning in them. So when these data are collected from such sources, we call them secondary sources. So the first thing we do when we collect this data is to clean this data such that it can have less impurities, can have less outliers, and it will be ready for predictions. So we can clean data by removing missing values, by also removing missing cells, by filling columns with perhaps the mean of that column for those missing cells. Also, by removing outliers, we can also transform this data after cleaning it by normalizing it or putting it on the same scale. These are all processes of cleaning and transforming the data, which is very, very necessary. In some cases, we'll have to spend about 80% of the time doing the cleaning and doing the transformation so that our data will be in the right state for prediction and also for forecasting. Now, the next stage after cleaning and transforming your data is the knowledge discovery. And this is the actual point we do our prediction and also we do our testing. In the knowledge discovery phase, we get a set of training samples. Then we use classifiers, which can be supervised or unsupervised classifiers, and we fit this model. Then we test the model using a sample test called testing set. So we can have about 80% of this training set and 20% of this test set. So after prediction, sometimes we encounter error. So to make the prediction to have less error and more accuracy, we optimize our prediction. So optimization is the process of minimizing errors and maximizing accuracy. So like I explained earlier, we have the statistical problem and the machine learning problem. Both are quite similar in the sense that they lead to the discovery of patterns in data, and they use mathematical theories like calculus, probability, and linear algebra, etc. But there's a little bit difference in that statistics put more emphasis on interpreting and mathematical rigor, while machine learning puts more emphasis on predictive performance, scalability, and autonomy. So applications of machine learning. Machine learning can be used in natural language processing, that is understanding human language as it is spoken, understanding the word in a particular domain. Also, for speech recognition, machine learning can be used to translate or transcribe words into written form. Also, for computer vision, machine learning can be used for facial recognition and handwriting recognition. And most of these applications are used in real world. Machine learning can be used to process web data. There's voluminous data on the web, and sometimes there's a need to find meaning in this data. So machine learning approaches are used to find meaning and patterns in this data. So also for engineering applications and also for other applications. For instance, you can use machine learning approaches to detect potholes on road. In my recent work, which I did with some other scholars, we're able to use machine learning approaches to dictate potholes on roads. So types of machine learning, there are 3 types of machine learning, although some authors will put it at 2. We have the supervised learning and unsupervised learning, and the reinforcement learning. In the supervised learning, we have a set of training examples that are labeled with correct answers. Example is a regression, decision tree, random forest, k-nearest neighbor, and logistic regression. While in the reinforcement learning, we use agent to maximize an outcome. Then for the unsupervised learning, we don't have labeled data or labeled examples. Instead, we look for patterns. So example is the k-means and a priori algorithm, which fall under unsupervised learning. And clustering techniques are used for this because we're trying to find patterns in data. It's just like maybe we have web data and we can't place which of the data accordingly. So we can actually find patterns using certain similarities in such data. So clustering techniques can be used for that purpose. Okay, there are basic definition we need to know. These are our ABCD of machine learning. And these are classifiers, training set, class, test set, and other definitions that we need to know. So a classifier is a machine learning algorithm that categorizes data into groups or into classes. So we can have a class of spam, a class of non-spam. We can have a class of red balls and a class of green balls. We can have a class of triangles and a class of rectangles. And a classifier is an algorithm that enables us to rightly put this data into their various classes. So training sets the portion of a data set that is used to fit a model, while the test set is a set that is used to evaluate the model to see whether the model can be generalizable. The class is actually the target variable. So representation involves choosing the set of features that best represent the data. Evaluations used to test the model to see if the model is good or is bad. So we can use percentage split or we can use n-fold cross-validation for this purpose. I've explained optimization as a process of minimizing errors and maximizing accuracy. So generalization is the ability for our model to adapt to new data. So if we have used a certain data to train our model, it should be able to behave in that same pattern when we have similar data that was not used for the training purpose. So overfitting is a problem in machine learning where we have our training model fitting 100% and the test, and upon testing, it fits just 40 or 50%. So the model is said to overfit. Then for the underfitting is another problem in machine learning where our model is so simplistic that it cannot capture the underlying relationship between the dependent and independent variable. So the graph or the picture shows three different graphs. The graph for underfit, which is the first one by the left. The middle one is just right fit, while the one by the right, which is the overfit. So you can see in the first one, it's quite simplistic. It did not capture the points, and it does not capture the underlying relationship between the price and size. And in the last one, it's like we fit the model to behave in a particular form. So such model can work only on that training data set. But when you try to use a test data set, you may not get a good result or a good accuracy. So regression is part of supervised learning. In supervised learning, we have regression and classification. So regression accepts inputs either in discrete or continuous form and proceeds with providing an equation that links the dependent and independent variable. So there are two types of regression. We have the simple linear regression and the multiple linear regression. In the simple linear regression, we have just one independent variable, while the multiple linear regression has more than one independent variable. So the independent variable are variables that causes a change in outcome. The outcome they cause is they